The biology of psychology. The body's comprised of thousands of pieces from liquid to solid. The liquid extract of meat is fat, and the extract of vegetables are nutrients. Aliens use anal probes in order to assess your digestion. By looking at the leftovers, tells what the body requires for health and energy. Not everyone can go into space, even pilots and scientists, because any unresolved, unrealized, uncooperative psychosis in the body becomes secondary. The strong need strength for what purpose? Because what was once a dried up or a low drip of chemical emotions in the head or body can induce stimulants and its situations, more prevalent in outer space, of course, like hallucinogens, nausea, bloated, anxieties. How many people can claim to have nothing to lose, but are prone to fight the hardest and take it from those who do have stuff to lose? As we come close to death, our body begins to mimic the REM sleep state. Was this by design? To induce the dream? How many things in nature actually nurture? So what is the effects of, say, color on the body? Insurance agencies charge drivers extra for owning red cars. But that's a learned perception, like feeling rested or anxious in green. I'm looking more to who do people fall asleep, or when people fall asleep who listen to whale noises. That's different than a girl feeling comfortable around deep voices. Most people have no ties to whales. So why does it induce such a thing? Do harmonic frequencies or percussion rattle some place in the mind that's attached to these things? Scientists know by putting pins in a monkey's head, they can either induce or restrain desired reactions. This is because the brain runs on two central processing units. The cerebral cortex runs motor skills using the medulla oblongata as its counterweight. And in accordance, the medulla oblongata runs the secondary motor skills, and using its counterweight properties can envelop creativity, inception, basically becoming the part that lets you talk in your head. The body uses a network of septic systems to inhibit their desired effects when called upon by a desired stimulus, like food or drink or temperature, air, or even things pleasing to the senses. So it can be asserted that joy, as much as noise, can cause the body's assimilation processes. The idea of fight and flight is for the cavemen. When you're a set of distilleries that using chemicals can liquidate the stuff we intake, then divide it up into either waste bins or routed and circulated to see if our body requires it. Is that still fight? Then would the need for adventure, excitement be ties to flight? The compendium of containment versus effervescence. We expel smell, or we do expel smell, so it can be said that we still are ingesting things that our bodies don't understand, and yet plants evaporate pheromones into the air. We sweat from all across our body because heat and action is compressing the molecules that are being expanded from the heat. Sugar is a fat, and fat is used as an insulator, as much as it can be used improperly by insulating the factory parts in use. The three most complex things in the universe are the carbon atom, the protein molecule, and the white blood cell. 70% of the human body isn't H2O. It's liquid. But if it is hydrogen and oxygen, i.e. two gases, this might explain how the body's insides can flow up and down so easily, and clog so easily, and dry out when unused. Because just because we stop using doesn't mean the hundreds of other functions stop. When we don't eat, our body gurgles because it's still digesting. Things of the cerebral cortex and medulla oblongata only move one way, in circulation. Perhaps this is why the mind is prone to dwell in circles. The two-hand test proves that sending feelings when they're lies, you put your hand in between a blocker and cover both. Then the other person takes two brushes and rubs your hand and the fake hand. Your brain will tell you that that both of your hands are feeling this. It is a proven all the way to feeling the fear and trauma of anything that bad happens to it. So does this prove why bad food can give bad dreams as much as bad sickness? The amount of the unwanted particles are indicative to the reaction to them, some more potent than others. Psychological trauma must react in the same way, because just because it's small doesn't mean it's not going to take you years to get over it. I'm an advent believer that video games don't create bad people, but these same kids who live in scary houses and environments, plus have no way for our new upgraded understanding of fight and flight to save them. I mean, no wonder why the way God is promoted failed, when he was meant to be a teacher on how to live, not how to control and change people. Video games allow kids to effervesce their emotions, like music and desserts. These are not coping mechanisms or learned experiences that builds their way out. Most things in entertainment are more vicious, like watching Al Bundy, Peter Griffin, Stan Smith, George Lopez, Roseanne's family. Not only are these horrible people, but they live in the nicest, most beautiful places. They live in nice homes, no gunshots, no sirens, no scary neighbors, and everyone else in their neighborhood is either ignorant or handicapped. The perfect world for the lost and damned. No video game can cause that level of need because the kids in the games are living it. Any kind they want, hopefully, from complicated to infantile. Games the kids don't want don't stick. And yes, I think the hundreds of gun games where you can prove your worth by the number of headshots you can do does show a sign of psychotic behavior. So in summation, a video game proves that too many So in summation, a video game proves what too many math problems prove. Your level of interests and what you're interested in. Can you expect a plant to grow underwater? And what do you expect? Of course, the people trapped in freedom are going to resemble a prison that's allowed to reproduce. I'm more interested in the ones who put the plants underwater and lock the doors behind a money key. We don't live in a complex society, but these two onsets are the main cause for every psychological infraction in the body, because they, just like our body has learned over centuries how it wants to use these things, people have also learned these things. And why does a predator know how to find the victim? That's because because they bear the scars, they bear the marks, they know on both sides. This is why they're supposed to, but we don't. It's locked behind a money door. You know, Giving people pay raises doesn't save the world. Putting price caps and wage earning limits saves the world. Well, it saves the people in it. Stop building breakable items. That saves the world. If everything's unbreakable and nobody earns anything more than anybody else, it fixes it. It at least gets it ready. It finally puts us back in the garden, but that's not God's garden. That's the Gentiles' garden of fruits and vegetables. Christ's garden was music. Not every person can be a musician because we have the real ones. Geology, astrology, geometry, engineering. These are the true fruits that were in the Garden of Eden. It didn't have anything to do with, that's why we are all branches. We work in accordance with each other, for each other. And it's all the same tie. When you're dealing with psychology, scientists won't bring up religion, when religion is as much a foundation in human reconciliation as the environment you live in. That's like saying the stuff on TV doesn't affect you. And that, alcoholism is hereditary or biological. But it's only in the medulla, it's in the mind. So it is in the body because the dimension that color exists in the same way words exist. Words can hurt us. Seeing bad stuff can affect us. The things we eat are part of us. Yes, we might digest the rest of it, but that doesn't really matter because 20% of that fruit was still part of us. It's what we need to maintain us, or else we collapse. Yes, trying to find out if we are the color we are, I think's pretty irrelevant, because we don't lose it. We lose our digestion, and our body has built it by that. So I hope we can stop living in a world that aims us towards Mad Max. I don't find it funny or appealing. I think people are worth more than that. And anybody who has a problem with that usually has problems with themselves. Like how this started, these people would not be allowed to go into outer space because these are unresolved, unnoticed, uncooperative feelings inside themselves. Why does the strong need to be strong? Is it because he feels weak? Is it because somebody made him weak? Is it because his body hurts and he's trying to overcome it? There are a number of things that can induce that need to be strong when everybody looks at strong as if they've overcome. when they might not even have dealt with it. They are no more, they are just as much an alcoholic as the alcoholic and drug user. Because anything that's more than moderation, God said sin is the overexpense, not doing anything moderately for the most part. And there's a lot to be said about that. But, just like inequity to begin with, inequity is doing unto others that you wouldn't do to yourself. So you can't say that, well, I only stab people a few times a year, so it doesn't matter. That's just the people who drown the plants. Some people want to see the world burn, because they've been dragged across the ground and feel nothing but burns. I mean, they're not damned. The earth or the people in it might damn them. But these are the same people who sweep all of the medical stuff under the rug, who sweep all of the criminals under the rug. I mean, acting like the criminals, when they get out, ain't gonna be scarred forever. Acting like putting all of the people under the... I mean, the more you watch your own family and friends suffer, the more you're gonna suffer. That's a proven fact. It's sympathy pains. You take it on yourself when they hurt. And by putting a price tag on health causes more sickness. Every drug that was ever created came from somebody hungry. And from doctors who came to realize stuff. You know what I'm saying? And drown the plant. This is not a superficial thing. I mean, it's bad enough if you release the prisons. But the idea that every day they get out, I mean, the number one problem why people have with race is the financial problem. But, I mean, imagine it. Yes, only half the country was slaves, and most of it was swamp down in the South. So it's not like we filled a lot in with dirt, we filled a lot of swamps in down here. But that's what it is. It's because they live in these bad areas and watch this good stuff. So how can you expect them not to feel like they're still in jail? Everyone they know dies, and they're allowed to breed. It becomes a jailhouse effect. It's why everybody's loud in low-income neighborhoods. It's why they're unruly. It's because they don't have the common human decencies that you have to pay for. I don't know how much more can be added to that. Psychological traumas are indicative to the environment they live in. It's a horrible thought, but the sympathy pains of watching the ones in the slavery became that. You through your own pain and learned skills end up becoming what you had originally been feeling bad for. It's absolutely wrong. You cannot let a prison reproduce, and that is nothing but what has happened. If you have a problem with race, then you're probably a racist. Price cap earning limits fixes everything. It doesn't matter what color you are. The psychological torments are finite. They do not run on this is not a video game. And like I've already said, at least the video games are played out. They're not locked in their rat maze. And the rich feel the same way as the low income. They feel trapped by it. So they build bigger yards. It's a completely conducent ramification of 1,000 years of lack of interest and claiming you're better than everybody else. It is prioritized that way. If you keep sweeping everything under the rug, it molds together and you can never clean it out because eventually it's going to eat through what's there and you're not going to know where the good stuff ends and the bad begins. Then what are you going to do? Just cut it out? What, kill everybody? I mean, how do you do that when it comes to a human psychosis? When most of the spoiled rich kids are as much of a problem as, I've said it a lot, how the police and the gangsters are the same. One are the claws, the gangsters are the claws, and the police are the fangs. Well, it's just as much the spoiled rich kids are no different than the unspoiled bad lower income kids. They're both self-indulgent. Both it's they're the exact same. The difference is the means. The lower income don't need the money to go and do all the stuff because they'll do it anyway. The rich people go and do it all. The poor people usually have more life, more of a friend base, more when the upper class ends up having more of the finer things, I guess you would call it. The expensive clothing, and they work so many hours that, that's the problem. You do not raise children by spanking them. You don't raise children by taking stuff away from them. That's like bribery. You raise children by chores and challenging them. You challenge them, and when they overstep their boundaries, you give them chores. And then you give them your neighbor's chores once you run out. Once your house has been painted, once your yard has been done and everybody's room's clean, then the neighbor probably has something they can do. You're supposed to give your children so much responsibility from a young age that when they become adults, it's easy because they're no longer working 80 hours a week for nothing. They're working 40 hours a week for nothing. But it's theirs. You never teach them by bribery. You never teach them by whipping. You teach by challenging and chores. It's easy. When the rich spoiled kid is no better than the angry lower income kid, who does the most damage? The lower income kid might run around breaking into people's houses, but the upper class kid is running around charging an arm and a leg and destabilizing it. I've said that in my last video. For every member of your family that you support, somebody's homeless for it. It is a commonwealth. There's only so much money to be spread around, and you can't put $100 million in your bank account and act like a whole neighborhood isn't suffering for it. This is what they want. They want people to go after the movie stars. That's why most movie stars play themselves. Because they're like, see, these people don't deserve their paychecks. When the entertainment field, the movies, are ran by conglomerates. The amount paid out to every newscaster is astonishing. If I were to go and open a store, I would even charging 400 times over wouldn't gain me what they spend. Because they still put it in their pockets. Papa John's got sued for $265 million. And with that, he never blinked an eye. He never lost a night's sleep, didn't lose one asset. He didn't fire one person. And he's still a billionaire, right? So the liquor law has literally destroyed the country. And the fact that I have to watch those Congress shows and watch low income people saying they want higher wages, acting like they're not going to get higher prices out of it, so that the owner of the business can still become the rich millionaire he needs to be to stand on his own. That's never going to change. This guy has problems. Royal Caribbean does not maroon 8 times in the ocean if this guy doesn't have a wife with problems, kids with problems. They need their $50 steaks. They need he has some mental unresolved thing, just like the astronauts who can't go into outer space, because they have that problem. Why do you have to be strong? And they can't come to terms with it. They can't look themselves in the mirror. So, this is my dissertation. And I hope I've evolved you to be beyond just like science. You don't decide anything. You don't judge anything. But the pieces are all here. The pieces are always here. There is no unseen variable, except the only 2 unseen variables there are is amount per square inch and the defibrillation of dimension. How color reacts with the world and is part of it. But I've dealt with that before. Color is as much an element as nutrients are in vegetables. So that's my dissertation, The Biology of Psychology. Thank you.